You're clearly not ready for today, because we're talking about a sneaker that's not just hype, but has a story that will move you. First, subscribe as we're diving into the Nike SB Dunk Low Born and Raised, a shoe that's got more layers than your grandma's lasagna. Now, before we lace up and jump in, let me warn you, this story's got some heavy stuff. We're not just talking about fresh kicks today, we're talking about life, death, and leaving a legacy. So, grab a seat, maybe a tissue, and let's get into it. First things first, let's talk about the man behind the brand, Chris Spanto Printup. This guy wasn't just another streetwear designer, he was a true OG from the streets of Venice, California. Spanto and his buddy Alex Two-Tone Erdman started Born and Raised back in 2013. But get this, they weren't trying to be the next Supreme or Babe. Nah, these guys had a mission to keep the real LA culture alive. Now, Spanto's story is wilder than a night out in Hollywood. Growing up, his dad was homeless, and his mom was dealing with mental health issues. Spanto spent more time in juvie than most kids spent in math class. That's like children prison. But here's where it gets crazy. He came up with the idea for Born and Raised while he was in solitary confinement. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade, right? But life wasn't done throwing curveballs at Spanto. Just a month after launching Born and Raised, he got hit with some news that would make anyone's knees weak. Terminal cancer. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy had just started living his dream and life buffed him. But Spanto, he wasn't about to let cancer write his story. He went through 4 years of chemo, lost 100 pounds and most of his hair, but you know what he didn't lose? His spirit. In 2018, 5 years after his diagnosis, Spanto announces he was cancer-free. It was like Rocky beating Apollo Creed, but in real life. Now let's fast forward to 2023. Born and Raised had blown up. They were collaborating with everyone from the LA Lakers to Levi's. Spanto was on top of the world. And then came the big one, a collab with Nike SB. For a streetwear brand, that's like getting called up to the major leagues. The Nike SB Dunk Low Born and Raised isn't just another sneaker, it's a love letter to Los Angeles. The blue suede, that's for the Dodgers, and the sky over Venice Beach, the white leather, that's for the sun-bleached sidewalks where Spanto grew up. And those little crosses on the toe box, they're not just for show, they're a nod to the tattoo you'd see on the OG in the neighborhood. But the details don't stop there. The shoes got one block at a time embodiment on the front, which was Pantos Philosophy. He wasn't trying to change the world overnight. He was all about making a difference in his community, one step at a time. And on the hill, on the turf. Because for Spanto, it was all about staying true to your roots. Now, here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. On June 27, 2023, just months before the release of his dream collab, Spanto passed away in a car accident. Yeah, I know. It's the kind of news that makes you want to sit down and question everything. The sneaker world was shook. Here was a guy who had beaten cancer, built a brand from nothing. He was about to drop one of the most anticipated collabs of the year, and just like that, he was gone. It's the kind of tragedy that makes you realize life isn't a straight path. It's more like a dunk swoosh, full of unexpected turns basically. Nike and Born and Raised did the right thing and postponed the release. It wasn't just about selling sneakers anymore, it was about honoring a legacy. And let me tell you, the sneaker community stepped up. People weren't just hyped about the shoe anymore. They were sharing stories about Spanto, about what Born and Raised meant to them. Fast forward to September and Born and Raised announced they were going ahead with the release. But here's the kicker, they did it their way. Instead of a big Nike drop, they released it on their own website. And for the LA folks, they got early access. Because that's what Spanto would have wanted, to take care of his people first. Now I know that you might be thinking that selling a shoe after the designer passed away is strange. And you know what? That's a fair question. We've seen it before with other artists and designers, and it always feels a bit off. But here's the thing, this release feels different. It's not just about cashing in on tragedy, it's about fulfilling a dream. It's about showing the world what Spanto had created. It's like his last message to the community he loved so much. And let's be real, the resale market is going crazy over this, which means that people also love Spanto. But before you get all judgy, remember this, every pair out there is keeping Santo's vision alive. It's like each sneaker is a little piece of his legacy, walking around on the street he loved so much. Now let's talk about the impact Spanto and Born and Raised had on the community. This wasn't just another streetwear brand slapping logos on t-shirts. Spanto was all about giving back. Remember when he gifted pairs of the Nike collab to every graduating student at Venice High School? That's the kind of move that shows you what a brand is really about. And it wasn't just about sneakers and clothes. Born and Raised was about preserving the culture of LA. In a city that's changing faster than you can say gentrification, Spanto was holding it down for the real ones. If you don't know what gentrification, then let me put on my nerdy glasses and tell you that gentrification is when richer people move into a neighborhood, causing prices to go up and forcing out the original, often poorer residents. Coming back to the story, Spanto was telling the stories of the streets through fashion, making sure the world didn't forget where he came from. But here's the real kicker. Spanto's story is bigger than sneakers, bigger than streetwear. It's a story about resilience. This guy faced more obstacles than a ninja warrior course. Rough childhood, prison time, cancer, and he turned it all into something positive. He didn't just overcome, he thrived. And that's what makes the Nike SB Dunk Low Born and Raised more than just a hyped release. It's a symbol of everything Spanto stood for. It's a reminder that no matter where you come from, no matter what life throws at you, you can make something beautiful. So, what's the lesson here? Is it that life is short and you should cop every hyped release while you can? Nah, that's not it. The real lesson is about leaving a legacy. It's about using whatever talent you have, whether it's designing sneakers or anything else, to make your community better. Spanto showed us that it's not about how long you live, but about what you do with the time you have. He packed more living into his 42 years than most people do in a lifetime. And now, every time someone laces a pair of Born and Raised Dunks, they're carrying a piece of that spirit with them. So, whether you manage to cop a pair or not, remember this. The real value of a sneaker isn't in its resale price. It's the story it tells, the culture it represents, and the people it brings together. As we wrap up, I want you to think about this. What's your one block at a time? How are you making your community better? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's what Spanto was all about. So there you have it, the untold story behind the Nike SB Dunk Low Born and Raised. Now, if you want to learn more sneaker culture stories, then comment down below what I can improve in my content.